The richest man to have ever walked the earth was ruthless and extremely powerful. He was also, believe it or not, entirely illiterate. The figure in question, none other than William the Conqueror, a man whose enormous wealth makes the likes of Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates seem like lower-class blue-collar workers. William didn't even speak English, yet thanks to his ridiculous wealth, he had more influence on the evolution of the English language than any ruler to have come before or after him. So who is this man? How did he grow his wealth to such instrumental heights? And how does his empire compare to the billionaire beacons of modern wealth? Let's find out. Our tale begins over here, in France's northwestern region of Normandy. This is where our young William would grow up, in the town of Falaise. And before long, he would ignite his journey toward power and riches. He was born around 1028. Documentation was poor back in those days, so unfortunately, historians aren't sure of his exact date of birth. But what they are sure of is that he was born into royalty, albeit controversially. William's father was Robert I, Duke of Normandy. The controversy stems from the fact that William was an illegitimate child born out of wedlock, which is why he's long donned the nickname William the Bastard, which is not very nice. In the year 1035, when William was just a 7-year-old boy, his father Robert I passed away while returning from a pilgrimage. By the time William turned 8, the first crucial chapter in his reign was written. As a mere 8-year-old boy, William the Conqueror, at this point, perhaps more appropriately known as William the Unqualified, became Duke of Normandy. His early reign was plagued by violence in the streets. Thankfully, King Henry I of France was in his corner, providing much-needed guidance and assistance. As much as we'd love to put a face to the name, documentation in those days was scarce, and unfortunately, no authentic portrait of William has ever been found. He was, however, depicted as a person of power in tapestry illustrations. Ancient written texts described him as burly and robust, with a harsh, scratchy voice, and apparently, he put on a few extra pounds as the years went on. What science can share, though, is that he stood about 5 feet 10 inches tall. His stature didn't exactly scream intimidation and power, but his actions sure did. After managing to make it through his first period of leadership, as William grew through his teenage years, likewise did his power and reputation. William was knighted by King Henry I of France in 1042 as just a 14-year-old. From that point, he took no prisoners. He expanded his reign as Duke by invading 2 neighboring regions, Brittany to the west and Maine to the south. Clearly, no longer was William an unqualified child. By this stage, he had transformed himself into a successful invader and a renowned leader. So much so, in fact, that the King of England at the time, this guy, Edward the Confessor, promised William succession to the English throne. Why? Because Edward the Confessor had no children of his own, and therefore needed to assign his successor. William, who was a distant relative, was one of the obvious choices. Little did the former king know, it was this promise, a promise to give William the British throne, that would soon change the entire face of England. Here's why. Edward the Confessor passed away in 1066. Despite the oath and promise he made to William, this man, Harold Godwinson, swept in and stole the throne. Harold was the late Edward's brother-in-law and a powerful English lord, so ordinarily, he would have had strong claims. But Edward had made the promise to William, and Harold himself knew it too. After the succession council voted in favor of Harold, William was angry. He felt betrayed, robbed of what was supposed to belong to him, so he took matters into his own hands. The next monumental moment came in the year 1066, when William would have been about 38 years old. This was the year of the Battle of Hastings, in other words, the year in which William decided to invade England and overthrow Harold Godwinson, who had stolen his promised kingdom. Here's how the battle played out. William was assembling an army on the French coast, but his invasion date was delayed due to high winds which made sailing difficult. Meanwhile, England was being attacked by Norway from the north. Harold moved his English army from the south, up to the north, back to the south, all without rest. They were tired, and they fell easily to William the Conqueror when he finally pulled the trigger on the 14th of October, 1066. Historians argue that William may have descended from Viking invaders years before, which explains his insatiable craving for invasion. Following a decisive victory at the Battle of Hastings, William reclaimed what was rightfully his, the English throne. This went down on Christmas Day of 1066 in London, just 2 months after defeating King Harold. With this transition, the Anglo-Saxon phase of English history came to an end. Ironically, it was this French injection into England that gave birth to the modern English language. Even though William himself was illiterate and didn't speak a word of English tongue, by bringing French into an Anglo-Saxon world, the two dialects eventually blended together, sparking the foundations for the modern-day English we use today. Now that William had stormed England, now that he wore the crown and called the shots, that's when the money started to flow his way, and it comes in droves. For the most part, his excessive wealth stemmed from 4 different avenues: taxes, land, treasure, and construction. First off, let's take a closer look at his taxation system. Once he donned the crown, William wanted to raise as much money as he could in his new kingdom, so he made the Saxons of England pay taxes. But this wasn't a standard system. It was brilliantly thought out to ensure he was making his maximum cut, within reason and fairness. So in 1086, he sent some of his soldiers around the nation to carry out a survey. They recorded exactly what every resident owned in terms of land, cattle, crops, and tools. With this knowledge, William and his assistants divulged exactly how much every individual in England could afford to pay. To this day, that intricate dossier is known as the Domesday Book. The taxes were flowing in from all directions, but that wasn't his only source of wealth. When William had invaded England, he seized countless plots of valuable land from former King Harold. Alongside that land, William now had claims to what was buried beneath it. Which brings us to his third source of income, treasure. From Sussex in the south to Yorkshire in the north, he plundered all kinds of treasures, including hoards of coins and religious artifacts. The final significant piece of his net worth comes in the form of the buildings he constructed. As part of William's efforts to secure and safeguard England, he ordered the construction of numerous castles and forts. None of these are more famous than the central keep of the Tower of London, the White Tower, which still stands today. The entire structure is valued at £56 billion, or 74 billion American dollars. With tax revenue, treasure, collections, land ownership, and iconic structures to his name, it begs the question, exactly how rich was this man? Estimates suggest somewhere between $209 billion and $229 billion. That's more than the entire modern-day GDP of countries like New Zealand, Qatar, Uruguay, and Morocco. If he were alive today, that kind of money would buy close to 70 Virginia-class submarines, or more than 33,000 Abrams M1 tanks. His modern-day army would be near unstoppable. He also could have built the Burj Khalifa 140 times. William's riches were so vast that his wealth trickled down to his family too, purely off the back of the king's generosity. Alan Rufus, William's nephew, was given huge plots of land. At the time of his passing, Rufus had a fortune of £11,000, the equivalent of nearly $30 billion by today's standards. Let's circle back to William the Conqueror for a moment. It's beyond obvious that his wealth was immense, but how did his fortune compare to the most notable and richest figures of today's economy? With a net value of $229 billion, he overshadows world-famous royals like Queen Elizabeth and the Dubai Sheikh, lesser-known monarchs like the King of Thailand and the Sultan of Brunei, even tech titans Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and the richest man alive, Jeff Bezos. William the Conqueror was just about as rich can get. What's the first thing you'd buy with $230 billion? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to The Richest, and have a great day. Catch you next time.